Welcome to Reverse Engineering, Sir. Today, we're unpacking the explosive story of a startup that didn't just bend the rules of hypergrowth, they literally rewrote the entire playbook. We are talking about defying industry giants, making wildly counterintuitive bets, and completely redefining how software itself is built.
I mean, $2 billion. Let that number really sink in for a second. That is the astonishing annual recurring revenue they hit in just 18 months. To put that into perspective, Slack took 2.5 years to reach 100 million, Dropbox took 4, Krister crossed $1 billion and then $2 billion, absolutely crushing historical records set by Silicon Valley's most legendary companies. But how exactly did a small team of 20-somethings achieve the impossible?
Chapter 1. The Billion-Dollar Problem. Okay, so our story actually begins not with a massive triumph, but with 4 brilliant MIT founders living almost like monks back in 2021. They were building a mechanical engineering tool, desperately searching for a sleepy, uncompetitive niche. But here's the thing, the founder market fit was completely broken. They were building for mechanical engineers without actually knowing their daily struggles. It was the classic trap, right? Building a solution in search of a problem. But then, the tectonic plates shifted.
The turning point arrived with the sheer, undeniable power of GPT-4. The founders looked at that massive step up in capabilities and had this crazy epiphany. They realized a fundamental truth. Very soon, every single line of code would flow through AI models. But there was a glaring issue. The current coding environments, the actual software that developers stare at for 10 hours a day, simply could not handle this monumental shift. They needed an entirely new kind of programming environment.
Which brings us to Chapter 2, the risky fork decision.
Standing directly in their way was Microsoft's VS Code, essentially a Goliath holding a massive 70% market share. Now, on paper, building a simple plugin for VS Code was the safe, obvious route. Everyone else in the AI coding space was doing exactly that. Lekin uno ne sabse risky rasta chuna. Instead of taking the easy way, they decided to fork the entire editor. They realized that plugin extensibility is just too limited. If you want to shift a programming paradigm, you need total, uncompromising control over the user experience.
The consequence of this monumental decision was incredibly steep. I mean, it meant months of grueling, unglamorous manual work. While their competitors were out there launching flashy AI plugins and getting hype, the Cursor team had to completely reconstruct foundational language servers and rebuild the debugging interface entirely from scratch. All of this just to unlock the deep native AI integration they envisioned.
But you know what? The outcome totally justified that immense struggle. As co-founder Arvid Lunamark put it, fast is fun. By owning the entire application surface, they could make the developer workflow unbelievably fast. They proved that an AI-native UI, where you could navigate, generate, and edit multiple files seamlessly, could act as an unassailable moat against the competition.
Chapter 3. The $0 Growth Engine.
Now, armed with a product that developers literally couldn't stop talking about, they hit hundreds of millions in revenue without spending a single dollar on traditional marketing or sales. Wait, how? By taking a deeply contrarian view on their data. They completely ignored vanity metrics like DAUs and MAUs. Cookie, free users don't pay server inference bills, right? Instead, they strictly optimized for paid power users, the people using the AI 4 to 5 days a week who eventually graduated to the paid tier because the tool had simply become indispensable to them.
And this ruthless focus created an insane velocity. If you trace their revenue timeline, it's actually mind-boggling. 4 million in April 2024, 100 million exactly a year later, 300 million just 3 months after that. This isn't your normal everyday business growth curve. This is a spark becoming an absolute wildfire. Like in Yahayek, interesting problem fee. How do you actually handle that much exploding demand without a massive sales team?
The answer? You let the product do all the heavy lifting. They hit 360,000 paying users, driving a staggering 36% freemium conversion rate. For context, that is roughly 10 times the SaaS industry standard. Power users naturally hit their usage limits and enthusiastically upgraded themselves. The value was just so immediate, so visceral, that swiping the credit card was an absolute no-brainer.
Chapter 4. Defending the AI Moat.
Early on, a lot of skeptics dismissed Cursor as just a simple API wrapper sitting on top of OpenAI. But behind closed doors, they were secretly building a massive technical advantage. Their proprietary tab model now handles over 1 billion calls in a single day. Think about the massive scale of that operation for a second. This custom model is constantly learning from the exact moments human engineers step in to correct the AI, creating this beautiful, continuous feedback loop that gets smarter with every single keystroke.
Of course, to build and maintain this custom, world-class infrastructure, they had to execute a ruthless, highly targeted talent strategy. They acquired SuperMaven, they brought in the original creator of Tab9, and get this, they literally flew across the globe just to convince a single brilliant engineer to change his mind and join their team. The result of all this? They hit $300 million in ARR with a super lean team of only 60 employees. That's $5 million in revenue per employee. Just insane efficiency.
Chapter 5. Why Cursor actually won.
So their ultimate victory in the enterprise space? It didn't come from fancy top-down presentations to executives in boardrooms. It came from an undeniable, unstoppable grassroots rebellion. We call this developer smuggling. Engineers at some of the best companies in the world simply smuggled Cursor into their daily workflows. They'd swipe their personal credit cards, quietly expensing the $20 a month until entire engineering departments were completely hooked. By the time the procurement teams even noticed the spend, the engineers were already refusing to work without it.
And this phenomenon of developer smuggling eventually caught the attention of the ultimate tech titans. When the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, literally stands up and says Cursor is his favorite enterprise AI service and that 40,000 of his engineers are using it, yeah, you know the game has fundamentally changed. They managed to turn organic, underground usage into massive institutional deployments across over half of the Fortune 500.
Chapter 6. The Future of Code.
Having absolutely conquered the present landscape, the Cursor team is now looking toward a horizon where the very nature of programming changes entirely. CEO Michael Trussell predicts a massive compression in how we actually work. First, we automate current syntax. Then, programming languages themselves will evolve into high-level pseudocode, becoming way more like a user interface than traditional code. And finally, professionals won't just write. They'll delegate complex architectural tasks to parallel cloud subagents working simultaneously in the background.
This vision of the future is so profoundly valuable that SpaceX recently secured a monumental deal. Listen to this. They hold the right to acquire Cursor later this year for a staggering $60 billion. Or they'll pay a $10 billion partnership fee. Let that sit with you. This isn't just a software tool anymore. It's becoming the underlying infrastructure for human progress. It proves that what we're witnessing today is just the absolute beginning.
And that brings us to the ultimate consequence of this whole story. As this technology completely rewrites how humans interact with computers, and as the barrier to building software effectively drops to zero, we really have to ask ourselves this final provocative question. When absolutely anyone can just vibe code a complex application into existence, what exactly happens to the traditional engineers? Do they slowly disappear, or do they elevate to become the architects of an entirely new world? Think about that the next time you open your editor.